Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Next 10 team meeting for January 8th, 2025, the first of our year. We will follow our standard agenda, which was created in issue number 319 in the Next 10 repo. Before we jump into that, any announcements people would like to share? If not, we do have a few things on the agenda, and I'm also thinking, like, if we have time, maybe we'll brainstorm a little bit about if we have any priorities or what 2025 should hold for this team in terms of things to focus on. But let's start by going through the issues, and then we can kind of loop back to it. The first one is the ambassador program. So this one, we have an issue to populate some of the messages and the topics that we would like the ambassadors to promote. I think we had some good brainstorming and discussion on that. And next steps were a few of us were kind of like tagged with adding some of the ideas that we'd brainstormed. I think that's in a Google Docs somewhere. See if I can find that.
Yeah, so I remember volunteering to add the TypeScript thing to it.
Right, okay.
I just haven't had time to do it.
Okay. So yeah, so I think it's just basically if people can go back, look at the list. I've PR'd in a couple of like top level messages, and we'll just continue to work on that. I think related to that, we don't have, well, we do have the next steps, so maybe we'll get to that. So okay, we just continue to add the messages. Continue to work. Oh, oops, continue. We continue to work on adding the messages. That's good. In terms of the follow-on discussions from the survey, I think that one's Perfect Diagnostics. Just that one ended up being one of the sort of the topics that was highlighted in the survey, which we didn't necessarily think was well enough covered. And we did say we should explore it at the next summit, so maybe we did that.
You mean in Dublin?
Yeah,
Or
because that was September 24th that we opened this issue.
I don't
yes,
think we talked about performance or diagnostics in.
Yeah, I don't think we might have mentioned it as a survey thing, but not really anything in more depth.
wasn't there a talk on diagnostics channel?
I'm pretty sure that, like, was it Brian who gave? I think there was a talk, but I think, I guess we're probably, if we can't remember, we probably haven't really closed this out in terms of it's probably a matter of if we think the survey called us out, we should probably connect with the people in the diagnostic working group just to say, okay, this continues to be a thing. I don't know, is there anything, and for us to understand is like that just ticking away, which to some extent there is work going on, I know, and no, it's Stephen who's chairing the meetings. I haven't made as many of them as I'd like recently, but so there is work ongoing there, but I'm not sure if it's like, well in hand or what. So, but maybe I guess it's like leave on the agenda for now, and we just got to figure out what to do.
Okay.
Corporate usage stories, I think, like, unless things are changed, that's kind of like next on our list after we get the advocacy program up and running. And then the next steps from the advocacy deep dive. That one, I think we have one thing which we're continuing to add the messages. The other one is we have one ambassador to onboard. And then really, I think we kind of want to have like a kickoff or something, right?
Yeah, I think we should probably improve the like the workflow for the ambassador onboarding. Because like Natalia was like nominated and it was the nomination passed, but we have not onboarded yet. So
Yep.
like due to holidays, like lack of time, but maybe should be more like either there is a lack of volunteers to do it or the process is not clear.
I think, like, personally, I'm not sure that's our biggest problem because I don't think we will be onboarding like tens of ambassadors, right? Like we're gonna have a couple. Natalia, yeah, just basically hit at the wrong time. So I don't know if, I'm happy to volunteer to onboard her, or if you want to, like the two of us could get together with her. But like I'm happy to set that up and we can get that moving. Um, I'd be like my bigger thing now is like let's get them rolling, if you know what I mean, right? Like how do we make them comfortable in doing the things that we're hoping that they're going to start doing?
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I don't know what the best way to do that is. Like I'm just thinking top of my head, like, you could have a like the ambassadors could get together and have a chat, or we could even invite them to the next 10 meeting and have a session, part of the session be that. I don't
Yes. Do we have a Slack channel for this? Because I think that would make the whole conversation easier.
Right. So, well, I'm just looking. Oops, I guess I got to look in the right Slack. So this would be like Node.js ambassadors would be the obvious one, right? Yeah, we do. And can I tell who's in it?
Top right. You are in
Oh
it.
yeah.
Marco is in it. Pedro is in it. And
Okay.
Liren?
So right. So that's, I mean, Loren's our one ambassador we've onboarded, and we've got one more to onboard. But yeah, we should, I think we figure out a bit of a kickoff discussion with them to say like, okay, what do you need now to get going? And if you have questions and stuff like that. Okay, so I'll volunteer to set up the onboarding for the next ambassador. Who would like to be invited as well?
Like to observe, or
Yeah,
I
well,
only know
observe,
tangentially about it.
contribute, whatever, right? Like we have a concept, and the onboarding is in part to help them understand our expectations, and in part to give them somebody to reach out to if they have questions, that kind of thing.
I'm happy to attend, but I don't know I only know the very broad strokes of the program, so I don't know if I would be able to like contribute.
Okay. I'll invite you and then let's see.
Okay.
And then I think like after we do that, then it would be like, I think like through Slack or whatever, then next after that then through Slack or whatever, we should discuss um whatever it is, kickoff. I guess also we might want to tweak to include Blue Sky, if, I mean, just looking at our social media tech stuff to see if we've covered that. Okay, so I think that's on the advocacy side. We, basically we add our messages, we onboard the next ambassador, and then we sort of go from there. I think that would be good. Um, anything more people want to discuss on the next steps for the advocacy deep dive? Okay, if not, the mentoring workshops. Jacob, you added this one, so why don't you take us through that?
Yeah. So in I think it was in Dublin, or maybe it was in, but whatever. In one of the things in Ireland,
Right.
we were talking about um, like diversity in the Node contributor pool,
Yep.
collaborators, and it, I think came to quite a head at the Collab Summit because everyone was like, "Oh, this is a problem, but it's not maybe that big of a problem." Um, and they were like, "Well, we have Joyi and probably a few others." And then I was like, "Well, how many non like guys do we have, like non-straight guys do we have in this?" And no one could come up with a number. So we counted it, and there were two women, and like that's basically it for diversity. Um, so
Women
then we were
women
like,
are easy to see. I guess I suspect there's
yeah,
a few others that are less obvious, but anyway, small number is the net of the.
yeah, yeah. But my point is, it was like significantly below what everyone thought that it was. So then we were like, oh, well, we should do something. So I was talking to the people on my team at work, and we had already been thinking about putting on some like community events and stuff. So I was like, hey, should we, like, what if we did some mentoring workshops, like specifically targeting like generally DEI people in engineering, and they're like, oh, love it. So then I reached out to Code Bar, which is a DEI charity, DEI in engineering charity in the UK, that are quite large and quite successful in this space. And I was like, hey, um, thoughts on expanding into Amsterdam? And they were like, oh, we actually used to have a chapter, just the organizers moved. If you want to start it up again, we'd love to assist with that. Um, so then I was like, okay, cool. And then I was thinking, okay, this seems like a potentially good opportunity to also get people involved in Node. So my ask here is, can I do that?
I think it's like, yeah, it's. I mean, I think the answer should be yes. The question in my mind is like when you say like an officially sponsored thing, there's lots of different ways that could be, right? It could be like
Mhm,
we're official supporters, which could mean like, hey, yeah, the Node project thinks this is a great thing, we're supportive of it, but it's not necessarily like being run by the project. Then there would be
mhm,
something that's like, we used to run Code and Learns, and those were basically run by the project with collaborators who were running them and lots of collaborators there. And that I would say was like that was an official Node.js thing, right? And there's something like so I think we just need to be a bit careful to say like what is it that we want to say the association is and clearly communicate that to the project so that like the project we have buy-in, right? In terms of like we don't want we don't want it to be saying this is an official Node.js project thing and like 99.9% of the collaborators have no idea what it is if you
mhm,
know whereas I think like so if there's no collaboration involved, that doesn't mean that the project still wouldn't be supportive of, right? Like the project would like to have more, people from the DEI space, and so we support this project would be like a different. So I don't know. I've said lots of words, but like I think the main thing is just to like figure out what exactly would the ask and from the project be. Like, is it, hey, the Node.js project supports this? Is it like we're saying this is an official Node.js project thing? It's a bit like I don't know if you saw any of the discussions on like the um the Discord channel, right? It's basically like making it the official, getting an existing Discord channel to be the official one, right? And there's lots of confusion over like, well, what does official actually
oh,
mean, right? And it was like,
mhm,
well, if it's actually going to be an official one, then we need people who are could do moderation type activities, right? Because like if it's like actually the node thing that's branded with the node thing, those things are important to the project and we need to be able to be involved in them, right? And so
Mhm.
that's where, I think similar things could happen here, right? Like there's things going on, what's the code of conduct and all those things. Whereas if it's more of a, hey, we support this at a distance, then it's less potential required.
Okay. Well, what I was envisioning, well, my main thing is I don't want it to be like a bootleg event where
Right.
like I'm selling like knockoff Node.js.
Yeah.
Ideally, like Node, it would be supported by Node.js on socials and stuff to say like, hey, if you're interested in getting involved in Node or something like that, we have this DEI event in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Show up, it's free, it's sponsored, all that, like the food and stuff is covered and all that. Come, we'll have some people there who can like tell you about it, things like that. You can all, and like the purpose of the event is like learning and things like that.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah, so I think like the way to go there is to open an issue either in the TSC repo or the node, maybe the node repo to say like, here's the ask, right? Like if the ask really is to like to and try and make it as explicit in terms of like, is it repost these kinds of tweets or basically say like, hey, the project is having this event, there can be a different thing. So try and make it like clear, this will be an event which is run outside the project, but we'd like the socials from the node project to say we're supportive of this and blah, 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 right? And then I think it's just a matter of the regular consensus process of like, do any people have any questions? There might be things like, well, what's the code of conduct going to be? Because like if it's associated with their name, we need to know. And like, are there going to be have you lined up any Node.js people from the project to volunteer? If yes, then that sort of shifts the thing.
Okay, cool. Well, at the very least, there's me.
Yeah, right.
So
No, exactly. So
yeah.
the other Marco and Jean can chime in as well. But like from my perspective, I do think it's something the project is interested in supporting and doing and that kind of stuff. Just that would be my suggestion in terms of getting the consensus, sort of like in terms of here's my ask. Yeah, everybody's comfortable with that ask and no
Okay,
problem.
cool.
Yeah, I would have this go through the foundation, uh, because maybe we could like allocate some funds for it, like people could like want to go there to volunteer. So like make it an official Node.js event, then it would be. I think it's totally doable, and I think it will get approved.
But
Okay,
I
cool.
think we want to start in the Node project. Like if we want
Mhm.
to be an official Node project, make the ask of the project and then and include and say like, the things we'll want to do as part of that is like support people, volunteers to be there through the travel fund, right? And
Mhm.
so I think very good point that Mirko makes is we can then also ask for resources from the foundation. Um, but I think we should start with the Node project in terms of like saying, because the foundation can't say, yes, the Node project has agreed that this is like associated with them or not.
Oh, right, right, of course. Okay, cool. And I have been chatting sort of casually with Robin about the idea because she was one of the people in
Yeah.
Dublin that was talking about it. So she's aware of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't said anything about like OpenJS, like supporting it with money or anything. Just like, hey, FYI, we talked about this. I'm working on it. So it won't be a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, because Sean, you were saying maybe you would train over from Paris or something. That would be awesome. Um, yeah, okay, cool. In terms of like code of conduct, CodeBar have one. I can't imagine it would conflict with anything that Node has. If anything, it's maybe like more strict in like a good way. So it would be following that.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think it
can
would
I
be
can
good
mention
just
things.
to like I can see that in terms of events, that's been one of the questions before. So like finding the link to that, comparing it to the one that's used for the Linux Foundation events, because
Mhm.
that's sort of the bar that, and if you say, yeah, and I've looked at it and it's stricter, maybe that
Mhm.
answers the question. If
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Should I move the issue that I opened in Next 10 to the TSC?
I'm
repo?
thinking more to like the Node project. So I would like move it to the Node.js and then tag it for the TSC agenda
Okay.
as a, and then with that'll be as an FYI to the TSC members, but really it, like most, like everything, it should be like any collaborators concerned. And also that's a way, like in that issue, you can sort of make the ask for like, hey, I'd like to have collaborators be there. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
But aren't you saying like I need TSA to approve the like relationship to the event?
It's the like we need our collaborators to approve it, right? Like the TSC is a tiebreaker thing,
Okay.
right? So this is where like, yes, in the end, like if your TSC members don't agree, they can like a collaborator, they can be one of the ones. Um, and so but
But
I that's where I would put it, like put it in the node repo
mhm,
with as crisp an ask. Like if it's like,
mhm,
Marco's saying, let's like, hey, let's make this an official. We want to make this an official node event.
mhm.
We'd like to get X, I think that would mean we need three or whatever you think it means. Like we need three people from the project there. Um,
Okay. But what?
and then we want socials to put it out. So if we can have like a crisp description of that ask in the node one, and then with the TSC, you might want to create a new issue. So like, or at least to have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
first thing be that crisp ask of like, we want this to be official. To be official, we're planning to do this. Because
Cool.
like for me, if you said, well, I want it to be an official thing, but like nobody from the project's involved, I'd be
Yes, that would be weird.
whereas it's like, hey, I've got 10 people lined up, then I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer, right? And
Mhm.
so the
Okay,
crisp
cool.
thing there, TSC, because like the TSC people are active, it's good to do have it on the agenda just for an FYI, get more feedback, hopefully more quickly. Um,
Cool.
and
Should I?
and even if you've already had chats with Robin, and there's like she's informally said, oh, and we could, if the project decides to do that, we can support it by doing blah blah blah. That's a good thing too, right?
Okay. Two questions. One, this kind of reminds me a little bit of like a collab summit kind of thing, which is usually in the collaborator repo. Should this go in that or in the main one? Uh,
I'm still thinking the main because like,
okay.
but like the collaborator summit, the core collaborators will not necessarily see it in the summit. Like unless we tell them to go look there, they're not necessarily following that as much as the other thing, right?
No, no, the summit is not a repository. That just usually the summit issues are opened in the collaborator repository. And that's much,
Oh,
much
yeah,
less
okay, I see what
trafficked.
you mean. Right, instead of right. Okay. Yeah, no, actually that's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then second question, you were saying like the collaborators have to approve it. Um, there's like generally approval is like literally an approval on a pull request or something. So how do we gauge approval? Like nobody objects?
It's I see it as the consensus seeking, right? So
Mhm.
basically there's a discussion, it's out there long enough for people to know it's there. And if hopefully you get, some LGTM, sounds like a good idea. And as long as there's no objections, then you say, yeah, we're good, right?
Okay, cool. I shall do that then.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah, and
Ed.
if you want to just like, certainly in the I don't know where, like in the next 10, if you want to post the issue there, we can, I'm happy to take a look and add my 2 cents and try and get it going in the right direction.
Awesome. Thanks. By the
But
way,
yeah, okay. Yeah, no, because
I
it would definitely be good, and if we can get some volunteers to get there as well and be part of it, sounds like a great thing.
cool. By the way, I don't have any permissions in the next 10 repository.
Yeah, okay.
Have-
We did land the thing, but I didn't actually add you to the list, so I'll do that.
Ah, okay, cool.
Node.js. Anyway, yeah, I'll do that right after we finish.
Cool.
And then I guess that took us to the end of the agenda. So that can take us then to like, okay, 2025, what are some of do people have more ideas, things, next 10 stuff? I see Jean has handouts, so that's good.
So yeah, do we want to do a survey for April-ish?
Yep. I think
The
that's the
yearly
same
one?
time we did before, right? And you're right that that's not a lot. That turns out to be not as much time as we want.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think we want to do that. Any other ideas like that we should put on the list?
So I still have my hand raised. I was thinking, do we want, so we have the ambassador program, but something that could be nice also to do would be who are you as a collaborator? And some kind of not company-oriented design on how are you using Node.js, but a bit more focus on people if they want to, like a small article about, hey, Michael, who are you? Why are you working on Node.js? Where are you working? Why Node.js? What are you doing on Node.js? Stuff like that. Like a focus on the collaborator also themselves. And on our side for the next 10, we could do a quick 10 question or 5 basic question that we would ask to everyone. Hey, how are you doing? One fun one. And then depending on the interview and stuff like that. So just to also have a bit of a focus on the collaborator and people working on Node.js would be nice, I think.
Right, okay. So that's like we could, so it's like a Jean, it's like collaborator stories, right? And I'm thinking like we could make that pretty lightweight, like basically we could like randomly pick, one or two collaborators per month. Is that like per month? Ask them to do short write-up. Where would these be posted, right? Like these are,
So this one depend if we want to keep that as like paper slash markdown. We can post them on the blog, some other stuff, but
right.
maybe some collaborator will want to have some kind about like almost some kind of fire chat or something that would be fun to have. I remember the one that come to mind on my side would be the NodeConf fire chat that happened last year and the year before. I think Marco, you were part of it, if I remember correctly. So on a way quicker format, like a 3 to 5 minute max, that could be posted on a YouTube page, stuff like that, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have to have somebody coordinated and meet with the person, that's a bit of a higher ask. Like I'm thinking if we just had something that you put together yourself, right? Like that would be really low overhead. Now, if we have a volunteer to do all the fireside chats, that's good. But
Yeah, I think something that we are not doing, and I know it's a bit gatekeeping for people coming to the Collaborator Summit, but we could also use the Collaborator Summit as a side way to have collaborator and take 5 to 10 minutes with 2, 3, 4 of them and have a small stuff. And Jacob, I'm seeing you have an ID, so.
right.
I have an idea, and
Yeah.
it's like sort of like merchy kind of thing for the collab summit. It's silly, but I think it could be really fun and informative. What if we gather this information ahead of time, and then we build out a template, and uh, basically create like a Pokemon card kind of thing with the information, and then you can collect them at the collab summits. So it's like, oh, this is like Sean's card.
It's interesting.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. I like the idea. It could be fun.
Hmm.
I guess part of the question would be like, what's the goal, right?
For
Get to
me,
know each other.
visibility of the people contributing, like I think all open source projects already have an issue with not really being seen as open source, or even big company, and most of the people are not aware about that, which is one issue, but even more people contributing in the kind of shadow every time. So could also share some light on people like, hey, this person is doing that and working on security for Node.js. If your application is safe, there is other people, but also this guy or this person is working on it. So kudos to that person. Yeah.
Right. So I like I come back to, in my mind, like we need something that's really lightweight because we often have like great ideas, but then it's like, well, who's gonna actually, run the program? And if it takes a significant of time, it's a challenge.
I will absolutely make these Pokemon cards.
Okay, well, yeah, if you go for it.
Give me the information.
Yeah. I'm thinking like, an easy, really the lightest weight thing I can think about is like if we had a page, a collaborators page on the Node.js.org website.
Mhm.
And basically it was like randomly pick from our collaborators. And then they just PR in a short description of who they are and what, why they're involved. That would take very little effort from anybody, right? And would achieve the goal of like, hey, you're now on the collaborators page. Um, the hardest thing might be like, okay, how do we randomize picking? But like that can be a small program, right? And
I
so
think we have a
I'm
team that
happy
can
for
do
us to
that.
do anything if there's a volunteer to do the other stuff, but like that seemed like a very simple ask to the website, like, hey, can we create a page? And then you would basically, I could see it would just be like one page and you PR yourself, your description up at the top. And then like it's like Michael Dawson is the heading. Here's the description I wrote. And then like down below can be like blah, Jean, and then blah, and then keeps going down. We would probably need like, I don't think it would just be core collaborators, right? So we'd need kind of like a list of people. Maybe we would need to ask that people opt into that list, right? So basically we would have a list that's like, here's the list of eligible collaborators, like across, like in the greater sense of like, hey, you're contributing to any of the working groups and teams and blah, blah, blah. And then we could have a program that would actually randomize based on that list.
Yeah, so technically, I was thinking, yes, we should ask people to opt in, not have that by default.
Yeah.
And just the opt-in would be you yourself are opening a pull request with the content you want to be written. And then the content is just basically taken from that. Then we can discuss, do we want the content provided directly in the Node.js website repository, or do we want that to be in, I don't know, Markdown or any kind of other format in another specific repository, and the front end and the new Node.js website pull that information dynamically, multiple way. But I think the only part is we ask everyone to open a PR if they want to be part of it. And that's their way to sign in on being visible on that. If they don't want, no one open a PR targeting someone else, no one validate a PR that is not themselves, stuff like that, basically. But on our side, and I can write a quick, like 5 to 10 questions that we want answered on the next 10 repository for now as a PR, that way we review, but would be basically the basic question: who are you? What are you doing? Why being involved in Node.js? Why are you working on open source? I don't care, like 5, 10 questions, and people can pick and choose. That way it also randomized to not have everyone answering only the same 2 or 3 questions. If we open 10 each question, people will choose 2 or 3 they want to answer. And we have different answers, different focus, different stuff, different depending on people.
Yeah, I
Cool.
like that. I think that the one thing we do need to think about is like, I don't think it'll be as effective if we suddenly have like, a list of 100 of these on the website. I kind of think like maybe we could PR that into some place, but then I think like every month you want one or two to be like the promoted one of the month with the tweets from the Node.js org, Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, basically saying, here's the randomly chosen person that we're going to post about this.
So technically on the page itself, we could even have something that would be like most of the speaker presentation for conferences. You have a list of everyone that opt in,
Yeah,
and on top, as a top level banner, you have contributor of the week or the month. I don't care the
right.
time frame, and it's randomized, but we try to keep, or we use something to only display one person that week or 2 weeks, even if it's one PR every month or 2 weeks. Yeah, we can do that on the Node.js website to say, hey, first 2 week is Jacob, second 2 week is Jean, second month, first and 2 week the Michael, then Marco. Like, yeah.
The Node.js website, a lot of the content is in Markdown files. So I think we could probably ask the website team to put together a template for that would consume this this Markdown file, and then like if you have a direct link to it, you could find it. So then that would avoid just like dumping a shit ton of stuff on there. And then we could potentially build this in a page that like randomly chooses or whatever, or something more sophisticated, and then we can feed into that to like post to a social if we wanted or something. But I think that should be fairly simple because the like the Learn articles and things already specify there's a template to be used. So I think the infrastructure for this probably exists.
Yeah, the less hands-on we can make it, the better. Like I like the idea of saying like to opt in, you just put what your current you PR in your current description, that goes somewhere and there's a big long list, right? So that's good. But then I think like if we had an action that ran at whatever interval and basically was like, hey, I'm the randomly selected contributor of the month. It PRs automatically generates the PR to the Blue Sky thing. And then, we have the ask to the OpenJS socials to look out for that and replicate it to the others. And then for that month, like somehow maybe I don't know if it's a PR to the website or whatever, but like something that then, and that program just ran. That would be like a sustainable thing where you have that forever without really having to have somebody say like I'm managing it and doing work every month. But we need somebody to sort of figure that out and actually do like the automation and those kinds of things.
Is this something we should ask the website team?
I think part of it though, but like, the PRing into the like the Blue Sky repo to get the promotion and stuff like that would probably be outside of their scope. But
Oh, true.
I think it would be like ask the website team if they'd have any concerns about this. Like, is this something they would support and think's a good idea? That would be a good sanity test.
Oh, okay. So like this wouldn't go onto the website at all then.
No, I think it like in my mind, what we want is something that's on the website. But in addition, you want the socials to promote it. And it's kind of like I could see like if we were doing it manually, I could see like a page which is like collaborator spotlights, and you could just like add a new one at the beginning every month, right? Um, but instead and in that say you could like randomly pick people, you could ask them to do it, they would PR themselves in, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's the way we would do it, and then you would promote it. But like with Jean's idea of like get everybody to do it up front, then you've got a repository, you could automate the rest of it, which would be like add it to the top of the page and promote it and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's the same as I was saying. I was piggybacking off of that and saying like the markdown file can be contributed by that person to the website repository in a particular folder, and then it's there to be consumed. But we don't have to consume them right away. Right away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool, cool.
So yeah, this sounds like a good idea. We probably need like a champion who's going to figure out the mechanics and like how we would how the pro basically write down the description of here's exactly how we think the program should work and coordinate with the website team to say like, hey, are you going to object to this, or is this a good idea in your mind, and like how are we going to manage the social part of it? And
Cool.
So I think, yeah, I think that's a good thing to put on the list of like 2025. That would be a good target. Just need somebody who's going to run with getting it. I added a couple just from our existing issues, like we want to ramp up the ambassador program, get that active. I think 25 is a good goal. And I think our earlier idea of ramping up the corporate Node.js usage stories would be a good one as well. And again, that might be something where we have a similar, like almost sounds similar to the collaborator stories where, ideally we get people companies who PR in their own sort of story,
Like a
and
testimonial
then we
kind of thing.
promote those on a basis, which like, we don't want 100 stories in 1 month because nobody reads those, but we would like to have one story per month, right? And have that come out and be promoted and and be visible. And then, if you can end up with a page that has like 30, then you see the most recent one, so that was the one that's promoted, but you can scroll down to the others, then we've got that would be a really good asset.
Cool.
So maybe we can even use some similar automation. Because ideally, if we can get to the point where like all we need to do is approve the story or approve the collaborator story or the corporate story, and then it just goes into the marketing machine, if that's what we would call it, it would be great. Okay. Any other ideas of things to get going for any technical things? Like I guess we had a little bit follow up on survey results on diagnostics. From Marco, do you remember anything that we should really, that would be good as a goal for 2025 on the collaborator, experience from our survey?
The thing is, how often do we want to, like, when we target to do the collaborator one again?
Yeah.
And like how the main pain point was the CI.
Yeah.
So like the build time is too long, the CI is too flaky. So like we might want to like have a solution for that before we take another survey, because
Right.
I think that the answer is going to be same.
Right. Main pain point was the CI, right? Okay, so basically that, the CI and flakiness, right?
Yes. Like that was and the other point was the wasted effort and lack of coordination.
Shit. Supposed to open that pull request. Related to this, not just
Yeah, in terms of wasted effort and lack of coordination, that's like doing something that turns out people aren't that interested in, right? Or object to, or
Yeah, I don't think there are like actions that we can directly take to address this problem.
I think Jacob, though, you mentioned a PR, you were going to open something proposing like
well, first
RFC.
first we were going to lay out the problems,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then
Okay. Right.
yeah. So that's the PR I'm supposed to open. It's on my list.
Okay.
And then an RFC process was a potential solution.
Right.
But we were like, no, let's start with a problem before we jump to a solution.
Right. I think so. Yeah. So I think that's still like, that's good. Like your next action of here's the problem, right? Now,
Yeah.
like, so sort of like trying to get some discussion going on that and seeing what comes up as potential solutions is the next step on that. So
Cool.
So I would agree, Marco, that like, there's a collaborator summit being discussed for April, but maybe that's too early to have another survey. Probably wait till the one like that's in October or something like that. And so, okay, so we've at least got a next step in terms of the wasted effort and lack of coordination. In terms of the flakiness, like the really only next step that I can think of, from we've had it on the TSC agenda, some discussions was trying to find some funding to, fund somebody to work on the CI and flaky tests and stuff like that. And we're slow, like, so from my perspective, I'm looking at how we turn on the crowdfunding stuff. I have a meeting with Ben from the foundation to, like, we've landed something that says how we would basically manage them, very simple. I have a meeting with Ben to say, okay, how do you want to set this up, since, like, my understanding is they're going to ask for bank accounts and stuff, and, like, we're hoping that we're going to give them the OpenJS bank account since we don't really have our own. So anyway, that'll be like a slow thing to get those up and ramped. If we then collected some money, I think the CI would be one of our priorities, and that's one of the ways we might deal with it. So go ahead, Jacob.
I'm wondering yes, should for sure do. I'm wondering if um, it may help to make the problem and the solution seem more possible. Because, for instance, at the Collab Summit, we discovered that there are tools that like hugely help with that. I haven't got a chance to look into them, but at least prior to that, this basically seemed like an impossible problem of, like, this black box sometimes, like, throws acid on all of us. And we don't know how to get to stop doing that. So, like, making it less black box and like making it easier to fix the problems, or at least if it already is easy to fix the problems,
Right.
make that knowledge available. So it's like when I think we talked about adjusting the GitHub action or something when there's a flaky test thing that's failing on your CI job or something. One of the biggest problems is just finding out what the hell is wrong. So if it, at the very least, posted onto your issue, like you can see that, and then, like, I would mentally remember, like, oh, okay, this particular job or task or whatever, the particular item, I've seen this failing on my pull requests a lot. And then you can also search that. I know there's a repository for it, but nobody knows that repository exists.
Yeah, I think, like, my personal take is there are some tools that help. So, like, I've used those tools, and, like, you can do, like, it started failing 20 things back. I'm gonna go take a look. Even with all the tools, it's not going to be an easy thing, right? And I think, like, just again, my personal opinion is the only way we would actually get individual contributors to do more, enough of it to get rid of the problem, is if we actually, as a project, were willing to slow things down to force that. Like, basically, we're not landing things that are, if you're we're talking about making it easier. There's often talks about, like, making it easier to land things by ignoring the flaky tests, removing them, not
Yes.
not not the, like, there's no focus on, like, hey, we're going to stop for a week and just fix flaky tests. Like, collaborators, if you want to do any contributions this week, fix flaky tests. So, but I don't hear any appetite or discussion of, like, let's force people to do the work, right? And unfortunately, I think most of these flaky tests, like, it takes a significant amount of work to deal with a flaky test, right? Because you got to run it a bunch of times, you got to then look at the test, and, like, so we're talking, like, at least a couple hours of brain power diverted from what you were doing, and so I think the tooling and stuff is all great, but I personally am not sure that's going to solve the problem, because, like, if you're
But if
trying
we
to get
can
something
ease
landed,
that
are you
pain.
willing to take that 2 hours to do something totally different?
No, like, if I'm actively trying to land something, I'm like, F this. But after I get it landed, I'm happy to, like, well, if there's something that I think I can feasibly do, then I'm happy to go back. Like, there are tests and things in the module repo and stuff that I've noticed. I have previously noticed that they were flaky, and then I fixed them. So it was like, okay, it failed on my thing, and then just like landed that fix, and then went back. So like, if we can ease the pain of how difficult it is to track down, find, and fix these flaky things, then uh, I I think this problem would more or less solve themselves, because that's sort of what we do. We fix problems.
Yeah, I can already point you to that repo though and tell you this is the biggest one that's causing the most trouble. If you have
Yes,
cycles, you're going to add the
but
most project by solving that particular problem.
right, except that doesn't exactly solve the pain. Make it less painful to solve the problem. So at least the perception, and you yourself just said,
Yeah.
like a lot of times it takes a lot of effort and stuff to to fix a flaky thing in CI. So
Yeah.
I'm saying if there's a way that we can reduce that, then people will be more willing to do it. Because like when I see this, I'm like, oh, well, this is basically like a Sisyphean task. Like I could just beat my face against this wall for hours and get nowhere. But if I have hope, then I can, oh, okay, this is going to take like 2 hours. Like it's going to suck, but like I'll get it done. Then, um, then I think people will do that.
Yeah, Jean has his hand up.
Mhm.
So not really for this exact topic on this one, even if it's a bit linked. I think for a lot of people, it's hard to find how and where they can contribute on Node.js other than creating a new project or something. And for years, flaky tests and stuff like that were an issue. Could we / should we find a good way to advertise, hey, if you want to contribute, here is the link of the Jenkins Flaky thingy where you can find it, because I have it somewhere, I know that, but every time I have to remember where I store it in my bookmark and stuff like that. So just maybe have a main issue on the Node.js repository and say, useful link, first link, you want to contribute here, you want to have more information about contributing or how to improve your GCC build with Cache, Ninja, and stuff like that. Here's an article that talk about that on Medium done by someone 2 years ago. Maybe it's not completely up to date, but some information, a one-place information, really for people that want to contribute. And just pinpointing to other resources that would make sense for people to read without having to send 10 messages on Slack, go through hundreds of pages of documentation and stuff like that.
So I think we're pretty much out of time. This one's a good one to push on. I'll just add the last 2 sentences. Like I think Jacob, your key point is we got to turn this from something that seems like a never-ending task to something where you can see that you help make progress.
Yes.
And like personally, I think if we could turn this into a group effort, that would be good, because like in the case of like I could go and work on one of them. And even if I said, well, I'm going to commit myself, I'm going to fix one a week. There's so many of them. I'm like, it still won't really change things, right? Whereas if there was 10 of us who committed to do one a week, we could, as a group, make some real progress. But like, I haven't figured out how to turn it into a group issue versus like the group effort versus like you look at it by yourself and see, nobody else is doing anything. So what do we do, right?
I think that's step 2. Like chuck numbers at it is step 2, making it like easier to do to fix these problems in some way, I think is step 1. And then I think maybe the numbers will come, or at least it will be easier to convince those numbers to come. But yeah, if I look at this problem and I'm like, I have literally no idea and also no hope that I will be able to fix this, then I'm probably not going to do it.
So if you can, I think some people have tried over the years to make it easier, and we're still where we're at. So that's where it's like, that's not an easy problem in its own, right? Like in terms of how do we make it easy enough that people will actually do it? And but yeah, we're at time. So, but
Okay.
I think those are good. If there's any other things that people have in terms of like a 2025, but like I think, looking at from the survey, actioning those things in a way, and some of the other things like the collaborator stories and stuff, those would be all good goals for this quarter. Think about them some more, and maybe we should talk about it again next time as well with extra time.
Cool.
Okay, talk to everybody later.